So I don't think it's feasible for my reading ability. Hi, I'm Ann. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be doing a statistical breakdown of my physical TBR, which I will be tackling in 2023. Caveat with that, I may actually change my plan slightly, and I'll get to that at the end of the video. Once I had my list of all the books that I had in my physical TBR, I have 136. I thought I had 137, but apparently I only have 136 because one of the books that I had, which was not on my actual video where I showed all the books on my physical TBR, that one I already had in another format, but I thought it was a different book. So I took that one off the list. And I have since then completed one other book. I'm almost done with another one as well. But I'm not going to discount those because I have decided to actually have started it November 8th and just see how much I could do. So I realized that breaking it down into just the number of how many books I had was not very helpful because, like I mentioned in my last two videos about this challenge, is that some of these books are very easy to read. They may be 100, 200 pages, even 300 pages, and they may be like light fiction, which is very easy to read. Or they might be 1,000 pages, super dense, and a book like that would take me a lot longer than a book that is only 300 pages. So I decided instead of categorizing them kind of as a series of books, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that type of list. Instead, I would categorize them according to page count because I don't want to be reading a whole bunch of 1,000-page books at once. I want to differentiate. And one of my subscribers, Pamela, actually suggested also doing a genre breakdown where I don't just read, all nonfiction for 1 month. All philosophy for 1 month because I'm going to get really burned out by just reading one genre, and instead say, okay, I'll read one philosophy this month. I'll read one classic. I'll read one history book, etc. So she was very helpful. So thank you, Pamela. But so I've broken these books down into a lot of different elements and kind of understanding just what we're working with when we look at my massive physical TBR. So first of all, of course, is the page breakdown, and I even made a pie chart for this. As you can see, we have length, and I broke these up into different page brackets. So my lowest page bracket is under 200 pages, then we have 200 to 300 pages, 300 to 400, 400 to 500, and over 500. As you can see by this chart, I was a little bit surprised by just how many books I have that are over 500 pages. I was not expecting that, and I already feel overwhelmed looking at it because 31% of books on my physical TBR are over 500 pages. The second amount, of course, is 20%, which is 300 to 400 pages, which I personally think is like the average length of a book. Those are most of the books that I come across. And then 19% is 400 to 500. So even the third bracket is still extremely long, I would say. And then, of course, you have 16% between 200 and 300 and 14% under 200, which makes sense because I don't personally think I own that many books that are under 200 pages. Most of the books I own are longer. Then, since I was like, okay, so I've already done page breakdowns, why don't I dig in and just do a bunch of different types of breakdowns? So I did an author breakdown, and that one I looked at men, women, and the third one on the list you can see is just mixture, which basically means it is probably an anthology of short stories which has both male and female writers. I was surprised by this. 70% of my physical TBR are written by men, which I was surprised about that, but I guess like most of the classics I own are written by men. But I was surprised at how many of the history books that I own specifically are written by men, and only 14% are written purely by women, and 16% is actually probably like half and half, men and women as well. And I never consider the sex of an author when I pick out their book. It makes sense why I wouldn't necessarily be like even, but I was surprised at how skewed this was. Then I also did a overall genre breakdown looking at how much was nonfiction and how much was fiction. And again, I was surprised by this because only 47% was fiction, and I thought it would be way higher because I predominantly read fiction, and 53% is nonfiction. Though I suppose this makes sense because a lot of these books I have been avoiding reading for years, and if they are nonfiction, especially dense histories, it makes sense that I've avoided it for years. So I guess that makes sense, but also predominantly I read fiction, so I guess this year will be very hard on me. And then this was also Pamela's suggestion, though I switched around the genres just a little bit. She recommended what types of genres to break down these books into. So as you can see, most of these were her suggestions, except for the, I say, bottom four. So you have classic philosophy / religion, biography, history, modern fiction, literary analysis, general nonfiction, mystery, fantasy / sci-fi, historical fiction, and anthology. So, starting with the most percentage I have, no surprise, it's classics. I love classics, so it makes sense that I have a lot of these on my physical TBR. The second one I was surprised at is just history books. So these are nonfiction history books, which I thought I had read most of my nonfiction history books, but apparently not. And then the next one is philosophy / religion, which is 16%. And it makes sense because it kind of is two genres in one, because philosophy is one that I'm interested in. And I have like Descartes and Kant and all those philosophers. But then I also have a lot of religious books, predominantly Catholic books or Christian books. So it makes sense that I have quite a big section in there. After that is 13% is anthology, which is the genre I am most worried about reading, because short stories take me a long time to read because they're one story, and so I'll read one story and have almost a book hangover, and so it's hard for me to like continue on to the next story without taking a break. So I have to like push through that. Maybe I'll try to read like one anthology each month or something like that. But the next few are a lot smaller. Like the next one that is just closest to anthology is 7% with general nonfiction, which makes sense. I have a lot of random books thrown into general nonfiction. 6% is biography. And then I have 5% in literary analysis, fantasy and sci-fi, and historical fiction. And then I have a couple other sections that are super small, so like mystery is only 3%, which I'm surprised about that, but most of this mystery I own, I've already read. And then 2% is, of course, modern fiction, which I don't read a lot of modern fiction, so that even makes more sense. So that's all that I had for pie charts. I thought it was really interesting to look at the breakdown in genre and length of all the books I own. Now we're going to go into my game plan. So I added up the pages because I feel like it's a lot easier to give myself a quota of how many pages I can read. I should be about averaging a day, because that gives me a gist of, like, on the days that I know I won't be able to read, how many more pages do I have to read to make up with it. And this is where I have a feeling I'll probably change my plans. So in total, the page count is 60,511 pages. Now, for reference, I think back in 2020, I read about 50,000 pages in the entire year. So that says that even if maybe the number of books isn't that much, 136 books, me reading that in a year is not that high, but the page count is a lot higher. And that also means that if you include me starting now in November, that's not even including like if I didn't start till January 1st. That means I would have to read 145 pages a day. And some of these books, I think I could definitely do that, if they're lighter books. But a lot of these books, whether the philosophy or dense classics or historical books, I don't personally think I could read that much. So I'm still going to be aiming for the goal of finishing my TBR in the next year. However, I think a more realistic goal is to divide it into 2 years instead, because reading like 75 pages a day is still a lot, but it's not half as much that than I would be if I tried to read all of them. So I am going to be aiming towards completion of my books. but I don't think I am going to like extremely push it more than halfway. I might just get half done and then continue this on into the next year. I think that is kind of my backup game plan, because so far in a day I've found that, yeah, some days I can read like 150 pages, but the majority of days I can only read like 40 or 50 pages. So I don't think it's feasible for my reading ability to try to push it to reading 145 pages every single day, because that is a lot. And that doesn't even like count for if I didn't start it till January. So weird video. I know. I swear. Next video, I will be going back to more normal videos that are like more normal for my channel, like book reviews and things like that. But I did want to do one last analysis of my physical TBR and just kind of understanding it better. So let me know, have you ever looked at like how long your books are? Like, what does your physical TBR look like? Do you like looking at your book stats like I do? Are you weird like that, or are you a normal person who doesn't do that? Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.